It is my pleasure to once again interview our sitting Congressman, Bill Keating, from the 9th Congressional District. Good to see you once again at our 2012 Jefferson-Jackson dinner.
It's great to be here, and I like the way you say the 9th, because that's, I hope you're right.
It's the
10th now, but it will be the 9th.
That's right. Well, it's been an interesting change with redistricting and with that whole, how has that gone for you and the staff?
I think it's gone well. It's one more challenge between doing the work in Washington and here. One thing I've noticed personally is it's much more difficult to campaign because you're spending time in Washington and time here. So that's a constraint I haven't ever experienced before, but we're doing it, and it's working well.
And you're doing an admirable job of it, because we see you all over the Cape, Brewster and Bloom, various points of Cape Cod, Plymouth, and the South Coast.
This is my second stop in Hyannis this evening. So.
That's right. That's right. Well, this past year has been particularly challenging in terms of the economy, in terms of jobs, job creation, the difficulties there. You've been helping us in Congress. Can you tell us a little bit about the efforts you've had?
Well, we've been successful on a few fronts, despite the very difficult environment in Washington. One of the things that was important, I'm a member of the Small Business Committee. One of the things we had to do, playing defense, there was monies that were going out to help small business innovation research funds. Massachusetts is the second state in the country, our little state, in utilizing these. And it's been one of the things that's propelled the small businesses forward, the innovation businesses. And there was a movement in Congress to cap the amount that each state could have, because two states are up and above everyone else. It's California and then Massachusetts. And what we wanted to do is make sure that was done on merit, not on just arbitrary things like, well, we're going to just parcel it out among states. We were able to stop that, and we were able to get an authorization for more of these funds until 2017, and we were also able to raise the cap of those funds. They have been, for areas like Cape and Cape businesses, one of the lifebloods to give them capital for these new startup businesses. So we're excited about that. That's happened. We also, for small businesses that going public, we did away with some of the regulatory issues that hampered their ability to do that, to get increased capital. So in the midst of a pretty tough environment getting things done, from the small business perspective, we're able to get a few things done, important things that'll help our area. Important
news, especially in this economy where we need jobs, we need opportunities, access to capital for small businesses. And thank you very much for clearing that up so that we can have some of those opportunities here.
Oh, it's being utilized in the Cape. People wouldn't realize it right off the bat, but what we're going to try and do is identify some of those so people become aware that this is something that will help our state in particular.
How has the gridlock down in the House affected the way that you're able to deliver things here to the Commonwealth and around the country where else it's needed?
Well, a lot of the gridlock isn't partisan gridlock. What's happened after the last election is there's been a new infusion of Tea Party type Republicans, and within the Republican caucus there's been difficulties in advancing issues. The Speaker has tried 2 or 3 times to advance issues, and only to find out is he can't get the support of his caucus on some major issues that affected all of us, whether it was a government shutdown that was impending or default on the U.S. dollar. I was able to cross party lines and be able to join a movement in the Senate to make sure those things didn't happen. But we should be able to try and get a consensus, I hope, next year, because this year's become problematic, let's face it. But I hope next year we're able to do it. But it's not as partisan. What's really causing the initial gridlock is that internal strife that's going on right now within the majority party.
I see. All right. And with regard to this being a presidential election year, does that maybe compound the issue in the atmosphere down there?
I think when you had the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell from Kentucky, say his primary goal was to defeat the president. The primary goal of all of us is to put people to work. Our economy's front and center. If our economy moves forward, it deals with significantly with the deficit. Just a drop of a few percentage points in unemployment will result in a 30% cut in our deficit. So the two things are intertwined. So we can't have an issue where we're going to stop and try and put a roadblock to necessary jobs for political reasons. I'm sorry to report that that is somewhat the case.
I know you've also been very vocal with regard to your support of the President's health care bill. How do you see that moving forward in this Congress?
I try to tell people, my colleagues around the country, I said, come to Cape Cod. Look at what's going on with the community health centers in Cape Cod, in the Lower Cape, and how successful that's been in terms of providing access, which is really a rural area. People don't view it that way, but it is. In the central part of the Cape, how it's working well, and the way the hospitals are working with these community health centers and the innovations that are there with the community health centers. We're seeing the future. People don't realize it's all around them, but we're seeing the future here in Cape Cod. People have really made the effort in the health industry to be a success. And I can't tell you how impressed I've been with what's going on here. People realize that, I think, as they're part of the system, but if we move in the direction that we have shown here, in access and in hospitals that are linked to the teaching hospitals, the best care, and have them work in unison, that's what's going to help not only improve the quality, but it's going to contain the cost better, because if you have good preventative care and good primary care, that drives the cost down because people aren't getting sicker. The first portal of entry is not the emergency room, and when people don't have that kind of insurance, they're still getting care. So you can do the math. The math is someone is paying for that care. It's the rest of us.
Right.
So it's also a fairer system for those of us that have insurance that previously had been paying not only our costs, but the costs of other people who aren't paying.
Right. Speaking of costs, the Massachusetts Senate candidate, Elizabeth Warren, has talked a little bit about that, about costs and the costs that are borne by large corporations disproportionately against standard U.S. citizens and the tax rates that they pay, the fact that corporations like GE have managed to pay nothing in taxes, whereas the costs are only rising on the lower middle class. Is there anything that you see that can be done in Congress to start working in the direction to help those citizens?
Well, I think there's a very strong sentiment among the majority of Americans to change the tax code, and that doesn't mean raising it. If we do things correctly, for the average person, it could lower the tax rate by dealing with some of the exemptions that are there. Some of them are just have no meaning anymore. Why are we giving, over a 10-year period, $43 billion in tax breaks to oil companies? Why are taxpayers paying that? And 93% of that, 93% of that money goes into preferred stock buybacks for the executives and executive bonuses. That's been proven. So that's probably one of the most egregious examples, but that money should either go to reducing tax rates or dealing with the deficit. We're a country that has the ability to do both, and actually every economic expert is saying if we're going to attack the deficit, we have to do it by taking a long-term framework and be disciplined about it, but at the same time do things that are going to increase revenues with necessary jobs. I'll tell you about another deficit. We have a $2.2 trillion deficit right now in our infrastructure. Now, that's not going to heal itself. There's no holistic way for bridges and roads to deal with it.
Themselves.
And by not acting on it, we're just waiting till later on to have a more expensive bill at the end of it. But we're hurting our economy because we have to have a distribution network that's clear, and that could be rail, that could be dredging for different parts of the country. We should be moving forward in that, and that's another deficit we have.
That's interesting, because I think as individual homeowners, we all recognize the idea that if you put off a repair now, it only gets more expensive down the road. It won't fix itself. But on a larger scale, these infrastructural improvements have to be addressed at some point, or they're just going to continue to
I think we should take the politics out of that. There's no earmarking right now, and I don't think there's any in the foreseeable future. I'm a sponsor of a National Infrastructure Bank, and that's something that will be continuous. You won't wait for actions after a certain number of years for Congress to suddenly act on it with all the special interests involved in it. It should be something that's continuous and available to the private sector to come in and get lower percentage loans and loan guarantees as well. So hopefully that's something that will take this problem, so we're not having a reoccurring problem, so we're not dealing efficiently with issues, and so we're not allowing the private sector to come in and leverage some of that as well.
What do you think you're looking forward to in this coming year? What do you think looks particularly promising that you got your radar zeroed on?
Let me tell you, I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and it gives me the opportunity to talk to some of the business leaders in other countries. And here's a note of great optimism that I feel. These countries, especially the European countries, They want to do additional investments in the U.S. They're concerned about the economic situation in Europe. They're really frustrated in dealing with the Chinese. They want to come to the U.S. They want to do additional investments. But the uncertainty of tax credits, how long they'll be there, if they'll be at all, the tax structure, those things should be resolved. We have to, and it's been one of my points of great concern and great interest. We have to work on the business side to give predictability and certainty to issues. If we do that, this investment's going to come here. No one's more critical in the U.S. than Americans. We forget, and it's given me a different perspective, how attractive we can be if we take that uncertainty out, not only for small businesses that are here, but for the big corporations that want to invest in the U.S., producing jobs in the U.S. And I'm finding that as I talk to people.
And the democratic rule of law, the regulatory framework that we have, typically had been an attractive area for foreign investment. But if we can...
It still is, but it just can grow exponentially.
Okay. Excellent.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your hard work in representing us on the Cape.
Thanks, Michael.
No.
I'd like to bring Representative Cleon Turner, who will present the Democrat of the Year Award.
Give him a hand, Thank you. The Democrat of the Year is a person chosen each year by this organization, CIDC, as a person who represents and epitomizes what we Democrats are on Cape Cod, who works tirelessly, is, I guess one of the things you would have to describe this person as is a nudge. She clearly is a person who, my favorite word, I like to, in the legislature, I like to tweet. Well, in the CIDC and the Dennis Democratic Town Committee, Leslie Steers, who is the recipient this year of this award, is a tweaker. She keeps us moving when we maybe don't want to move so fast and furious as she might want us to move. So it is with great pleasure that I am able to present tonight the award for the Democrat of the Year from CIDC, and I'll read this particular citation. This is also from the entire state delegation. It's not only from me. Thank you. It's from State Representative Timothy Madden, Demetrius Atzelis, Sarah Peake, and myself, and it's also signed by Robert DeLeo, the Speaker of the House. And it says, "Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Leslie Steers in recognition of being named the Democrat of the Year by the Cape and Islands Democratic Council. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors, given this 5th day of May 2012, signed by Robert DeLeo, myself, and the rest of the Cape delegation as well. And it is with great pleasure that I am able to present this award to Leslie Steers." One of the things I like best about Leslie is she gets great help.
Leslie, on behalf of the Cape and Island Democratic Council, in gratitude for your leadership, vision, and relentless effort in strengthening the Democratic Party on Cape Cod. Congratulations, Democrat.
So,
part of the beauty of Leslie is that she's humble, so she's not going to say anything. And I will channel that humility. All I'm going to say is that I cannot think of a person more deserving of this award in the 2 years that I've been working hard on the streets and in the Senate. Leslie is at every event, and she really is working her heart out for the party. I have no doubt that in a number of years, she will be getting the Lifetime Achievement Award as well. And again, this is in recognition of the Massachusetts Senate extending their best wishes in recognition of Leslie Spears being named the Democrat of the Year for the Cape and Islands. Thank you.
Pass the tiara.
You know, the town clerk's office is the pulse of the community, where all the activity begins and ends in people's lives. And Leslie has been the pulse of not only Barnstable, but she's also been the pulse of the Democrats, and the Cape and Island Democrats in her work. So she is totally deserving of Democratic of the Year, and I want to give her this congressional recognition, passed by the minority side of the House, the Congress, soon to be the majority side of the House. So let's be the recognition of being Democrat of the Year. Thank you.
And it's with great sadness and joy and pride that I pass the tiara to the Democrat of the Year, Leslie Spears. We love her. Thank you. Terrific honor. Thank you.
Okay, as you know, we do have a silent auction going on out there, and it will be probably closing within another 10 minutes or so. So please, if you're going to bid on something, make your way out there. Now, it's going to give me great pleasure to introduce one of our keynote speakers this evening. Obviously, I don't have to introduce her. She's a candidate for U.S. Senate, Elizabeth Warren.
I am delighted to see so many old friends and to have the chance to make so many new friends. And to say congratulations to the honorees. You did wonderful work. Thank you so much. Thank you. Also to have the chance to say to Bob Isidore, wow, you really know how to put it together. Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you. You know, I'm gonna follow Paul's good example. And instead of giving you a long speech, what I'm really going to try to do is just talk a little bit from the heart. I know I'm here to have a chance to talk to people who are out there working, who've been out there working, and who are going to keep working for the democratic ideals. And so I thought what I'd do is take this as a chance just to tell a little story about how, in part, I ended up in this Senate race. And the story starts in 2008. You all remember, markets are crashing. Looks like we may be headed for, potentially for a Great Depression. No one's sure what's going to happen. And the focus is already starting to shift to what are the financial rules going to look like coming out on the other side. And what I was concerned about is that everyone was talking about how we need to rework the financial rules right up at the top on questions like derivatives and capital reserve requirements. And what I kept talking about is, but what about what happened down at the family level, at the household level? The consumer credit system is fundamentally broken. It's now set up in a way that big multinational corporations decide that the way to make profits is to pretend to sell something at 2.9%, and it's only back in the fine print that you figure out it was at 22.9%. This isn't right. So I said, and keep in mind, this economy, this didn't just affect those families. This economy was broken, one lousy mortgage at a time. If we don't fix that, then we're just inviting this crisis to come back again in another 10 or 15 years, and back again and back again. So I went around and talked to people about it, and they said, so what do you want to do about it? And I said, I'm glad you asked that. Always have an idea. I said, I've got an idea for a consumer agency, a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I said, we take these 18 statutes, we put them all into one agency, and give American families a real voice in Washington. Now, understand this, I never tried to get anything through Congress myself. I didn't know anything about doing this. So I went around and I talked to our friends, talked to a lot of people in Washington, and they told me two things. The first thing they said is, this is a great idea. It could actually make a difference in the lives of millions of people. If we had it 10 years ago, we wouldn't be in this mess, but it can be great going forward. The second thing they said to me is, don't do it. Now think about that. They said don't do it because you can't possibly win. It's not possible to make a difference in Washington anymore. It's caught in gridlock. The lobbyists own the place. The big banks will make it a number one priority to stop this consumer agency. Now, not having done this before, what I heard them saying is, try harder. I grew up on too many Nancy Drew novels and stuff about intrepid girl legislator. So here's what I thought. Okay, if you can't get something through the inside game, where the lobbyists have so much power, where the entrenched interests and the special interests are calling the shot, how do you make anything happen? And the answer is pretty obvious in this room. You get organized. So I thought, okay, how do we get organized? I know, set up a conference call. So I set up a conference call. First conference call had 2 people on it, which I think does not legally qualify as a conference call. The second had 4, the third had 10, and then it hit me, the groups. Reach out and talk to the groups. So I just always, when I get the chance, want to say, in terms of the consumer agency, God bless the AFL-CIO, SEIU, AARP, Consumers Union, NAACP, Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. They said, we will be part of this. And ultimately, in trying to push this consumer agency through, we had more than 200 groups, and we had emails for literally thousands and thousands of people across the country. So when the moment came to kill the consumer agency, our delegation had gotten it through the House, God bless, a good, strong version of the consumer agency, but it had moved over to the Senate, and everyone knew the Senate was where they would try to kill the agency. No fingerprints, no vote. We were organized, and we said, just give us a vote. You can vote for banks, or you can vote for families. Some objected to that framing, but I thought it was entirely fair. You can vote for either side, but give us a vote. And when people had to take a vote, when our senators had to take a vote in public, we had the votes to get a good, strong Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We had it. Story for a couple of reasons. I I tell it because I know who I'm here with. And I tell it because I took 2 lessons away from that pulled me into electoral politics. Not immediately, but was a key part of it. The first lesson is when somebody tells you you can't get something done, that change isn't possible, that we can't make this a better world, they're wrong. We got a consumer agency not because the powerful wanted it, not because the rich wanted it, not because the special interests wanted it, but because we got out and we worked for it. I'm in a room full of workers, and that's what this election will be about. So now I think of this in terms of what's going to happen in this election, what this election is really about. We now live in a world in which the Republicans for 30 years have focused on how it is that we leave more for those who've made it and shrink up the investments that create a future so the next kid has a chance to make it, and the kid after that, and the kid after that. We live in a world in which the investments in education, in infrastructure, in basic research, the things that create an opportunity and a future for our kids are shrinking. And they are shrinking so that there is more left on the table, so there is more for big oil companies, for multinational corporations that invest overseas, for people who manage to get paid through stock instead of through paychecks. This is a key question in what our future is going to look like, what kind of a people we are, what kind of a country we're trying to build. We live in a world where the Republicans want to push us into, I got mine, the rest of you are on your own. That's not the world that the rest of us want. We're not going to do that. We live in a world right now where we are barely coming out of the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. And yet, those responsible for wrecking the economy have not been held accountable. What we need, what we stand for, is that we need cops on the beat so nobody steals your purse on Main Street or your pension on Wall Street. That's what we need. And we live in a world right now in which the United States Supreme Court, through Citizens United, expands the right of corporations while the United States Congress narrows the rights of our families through Defense of Marriage Act. This is wrong. Tonight, really, just to say 2 things on our basic progressive values, the things we share. Throughout this election, and if I'm blessed to be your senator, you will never doubt where I stand. I stand with the people in this room. And that is, throughout this election, and if I am blessed to be your senator after this election, you will never doubt how hard I will fight. I will fight until we win.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We have, again, the silent auction is still going on, and we have an award to be given by the Senate, Senator Dan Wolf, and also, lastly, our last speaker will be Marissa DeFranco, so please keep your seats. While the Senator is getting ready to come up here, Senator Wolf, you've all heard the story about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, right? Apparently, Snow White was a good housekeeper. She would make lunches for these dwarfs and send them off to work. They worked at a mine, and every single day she did this. She would make their lunch, bring it to the mine, come back home. So this particular day, she went to the mine, and she panicked. She was so frightened. There had been a cave-in, and all the dwarfs were trapped in the mine. She called out frantically, "Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me?" She couldn't. She just could not. She couldn't hear any words. "Can anyone hear me?" And finally, she heard a little voice come from the rubble. "Scott Brown is a wonderful senator. He really cares about the issues in Massachusetts. He cares about women's rights." She fell to her knees and said, "Thank God Dopey's still alive." With that lesson, please welcome Senator Dan Wolf.
So, did I mention that I was out door knocking this afternoon? I don't have a good memory. It was a lot of fun. People invited me in, cookies, milk. I highly recommend it. One of the people that I have had the privilege and pleasure of door knocking with and inspired by over the course of the last couple of years is Kate Singletary. Kate, would you come up, please? Now we didn't have time to make this sort of one of the traditional awards for the year because we found out very recently that Kate Singletary and her husband are moving off to Chicago. Is that right? But we would not let Kate go without recognizing the tremendous contribution and accomplishment that Kate has made to this party through her tireless work on the Obama campaign, the Patrick campaign, and for the rest of us. So I am tonight going to read you a special Senate commendation in recognition of your tremendous leadership, your tireless efforts in organizing grassroots support. Did I mention that I did some door knocking today? For Democratic candidates on Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket. Kate, it has been so wonderful to get to know you. I know that Kate will end up coming back to Cape Cod because everybody who leaves Cape Cod ends up coming back to Cape Cod. And we look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Now that was a surprise. Thank you very much. I have been so privileged to work for the President of the United States since his Senate campaign in Chicago in 2007. He is an extraordinary individual. But the only reason that he is extraordinary is because of the efforts of the people who work for him. And that is what we're told when we work for the Obama campaign. And that, I know, is what I'm taking back to Chicago with me as I work in the headquarters office. Because I can now tell them such amazing stories about the almost 700 of you who work tirelessly in his behalf. I thank you so much for all you have done for the President and for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next guest speaker. Thank you. Also a candidate for U.S. Senate, Marissa DeFranco. Please welcome her.
Candidate for U.S. Senate. And first of all, again, congratulations to all of the honorees. Amazing work that you do, and I know that because I have a team of volunteers just like you. And also, thank you very much to the council for your invitation. What is the essence of the Democratic Party, and what is the essence of my campaign? They are both one and the same. And that is to ensure that every person in America enjoys the equal opportunity that is promised to us in our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And that is why I'm in this race. I'm in this race to do what I do on a daily basis in my career for the last 16 years, and that is to make people's lives better. I work with businesses from across the Commonwealth, and I have the depth and the breadth of experience in working with people from biotech to organic farming to preschool teachers to doctors and nurses in the healthcare field to restaurant owners and chefs and everywhere else in between. And I also have the privilege of representing foster children in the foster care system. So Sheila, I personally thank you for all that you do. Different kind of campaigner. My homework is to tell you how I'm going to get the job done. And what do people want, and what is my platform? It is jobs. People want jobs. And what is my jobs plan? I am a Democrat who is not afraid to say that I believe in the investment of public federal dollars to get Americans back to work. Because if we, thank you, if we don't believe, if we, as the American people, don't believe that the best use of our federal money is to put American workers back to work, then I say that is un-American, and how dare any Republican charge us with not caring about the American worker, because that is our idea. That is FDR-style investment in our workers to put people back to work now, because the private sector is not doing it. They sit on $2 trillion worth of profit, and they don't have to hire anyone new. Do you know why? You all know why. Because they can currently squeeze the productivity out of the current workforce, because the current workforce is a captive audience. I'm a Democrat that will not play defense on this issue, and I am in this race because I am tired of our party playing defense, and I am on the offense. By the way, Republicans will say, oh, there she goes, talking about deficit spending. You know, there was another time when we didn't have any money in this country. It was the Great Depression. And anyone want to shout out the big number of dollars that we had in the bank during the Great Depression? Anyone? Zero. And then war came. And did we say, oh, no, we're too poor. We can't afford to fight the war. We can't afford to fight fascism. No, we didn't. We deficit spent to win World War II, and we are in a crisis again. And I stand by democratic values to say we are going to put people back to work by investing our money in them. But just in case they want a math plan, I happen to be one of those lawyers who's actually good at math. And we lose $100 million every single year to corporate tax loopholes. My jobs plan calls for $100 billion over the next 2 years to put 2 million people back to work in green jobs, jobs that we cannot ship overseas. And so why don't we take that $100 billion in corporate tax loopholes, I just want $50 billion of it, half, and put people back to work. That's my math for you as a Democrat, and I stand by that formula. A second important part of my platform. I am the only candidate in support of single-payer health care now. Thank you. Scott Brown and the GOP can't tell me that I don't know anything about healthcare because my father is a retired physician and my mother is a retired nurse. And I saw his practice go from something amazing where he would actually, save people's lives, something that doctors are supposed to do. And my mother had to go in and start managing the office. She couldn't even work as a nurse because she had to spend she did a little bit, but she had to spend the majority of her time doing what? Arguing with insurance companies because they said doctors can't do this test and doctor can't do that test because we're not going to pay for it. And Republicans think that single payer is rationing health care. We ration health care right now in this country, and it's called your insurance company. And by the way, as a small business and as somebody who has real-world experience of representing small businesses on the ground, single payer has another bonus. It is a jobs creator. Because if you decouple employment from healthcare, what stops small businesses from hiring? It's that 10,000 plus sticker tag that prevents them from hiring people and prevents entrepreneurs maybe save some money to start a business. But they're never going to do it because they cannot afford the healthcare cost. You separate and decouple employment from healthcare, you will see jobs flourish, you will see innovation, and you will see entrepreneurship go through the roof. And that is my plan for single payer and jobs combined. Oh wait, there's also a third part to single payer. The cost of Medicare is a concern. But guess what? If we had actual good preventive health care for the first 65 years of our lives, we would actually bring down the cost of Medicare because we would be healthier by the time we reach 65. And how can you argue with that? Finally, on Social Security and Medicare, I stand strong, and I will say, in the face of any criticism, that we are not broke in Social Security. Social Security is secure for the next 25 years, and if we have the Democratic political will to lift the cap and equalize payment of taxes across the board, Social Security would be secure for the next 75 years, and I stand right on that. And Medicare as well. When Republicans say that word entitlement, like it's a dirty word, it's called an entitlement because we pay for it like we put money in the bank, and it is ours when we get to the age of 65, and that is something else I will not bend on as a Democrat. Finally, how do we beat Scott Brown? We're not going to beat Scott Brown by getting people to hate Scott Brown. That strategy's not going to work. You and we have to give the people somebody to vote for. We have to give them a Democrat to vote for, and that Democrat is me. Because Scott Brown cannot say that I don't know business. Scott Brown cannot say that I don't have real-world experience. And Scott Brown can't say that I have charisma, because I trump him on all levels. So this primary competition is on. I'm proud to announce that this week we hit our 10,000 signatures and more. And thank you to all of my amazing volunteers across the Commonwealth. It was a daunting task, I'm not going to lie to you, but it felt good to collect that 10,000, 11,000 signature, and my gratitude to them will never stop. And so we are in this competition, and I do humbly ask for your consideration and your support. You can find out more about me if you haven't learned enough tonight at marisadefranco.com, and thank you again for having me.
Good evening and greetings from the 2012 Jefferson-Jackson Cape and Islands Democratic Council dinner. I am pleased to be with Nick Bernier, candidate for Governor's Council here in our district. Nick, welcome to Hyannis. Thank you so much for coming to our dinner.
Thank you for having me. As you may notice, I'm not the oldest candidate in the race, but I am the only one with a legal education. I'm a lawyer, and I work primarily in Providence, but I've been serving on local boards since I was about 18. I'm passionate about public service. I don't have many ties to the Cape, but I'm working to correct that. I'm spending as much time out here as possible because I want to meet everyone that I'm hopefully going to be representing.
We've actually seen you in Bourne. We've seen you in other venues around the Cape, different Bourne, at the Bourne Democratic Town Committee, various other Democratic Town Committees. You've been involved in the 9th Congressional Caucus, so thank you very much for your involvement there. Where is home for you, and can you tell us a little bit about why you're in the race?
Well, I'm originally from Swansea, Massachusetts. I graduated from law school last year with 2 degrees, a normal law degree and then what they call an LLM in taxation. So I'm a boring transaction lawyer. I love politics because it's exciting. I've been involved in campaigns for as long as I can remember. My mother was a political organizer, and honestly what got my attention was the incumbent. I believe what's going on is wrong. I filed the 7-hour hearing where Barbara Link, now Justice Barbara Link, was attacked for 7 hours just because she was openly gay. And she was attacked by the Republican governor's counselor. It's, no matter how many ways you splice it, it's just wrong.
Well, thank you very much for standing up for democratic values. We appreciate that. As far as your involvement in the Governor's Council, what other issues do you think are very important for you to address as a potential Governor's Counselor?
Honestly, no one knows about the application process. There's a lot of mystery around the Governor's Council. The Governor's Council does not appoint. They do not change laws. What they do is they properly vet judges and confirm judges. However, I think there is a role for advocacy where they can work with different towns, pull different state legislative delegations together, and there's also a role to shed more light on the process. We're only as good as the applications we receive. We don't receive many applications to be judges and magistrates. So I think getting more applications out there from the Cape, from the South Coast, from Plymouth County. We don't need judges from Boston coming down here and being robed for the first time in Barnstable County. No, we need lawyers and judges, people who have lived in this area their entire lives, because I think they can serve most effectively in these courts.
That's an excellent point, that the Governor's Council not only vets those candidates, but can also serve as that conduit for bringing up grassroots candidates from our local court system to serve in our local courts. You'd advocate for that?
Definitely. The beauty of it, though, is there's really no conflict of interest, because I'm not allowed to select. If elected, I'm completely apart from the process. It's a blind application process. They fill out an application, they submit it to the governor's office. Then there's this blind commission called the Judicial Nominating Commission. Oddly enough, there's only 1 member south of Boston, which I believe I would urge Governor Patrick to get some more members of that Judicial Nominating Commission outside of the Boston area. From Barnstable County would be great. Maybe someone from Martha's Vineyard. That would, I think, add a great deal of diversity and a different dynamic to it.
Well, that's exciting. I would look forward to seeing that type of advocacy, and I appreciate all those points that you've made. Would you like to finish with anything closing about yourself and personally?
Well, I'd like to thank you for your time. I really am looking forward to meeting all of you. I'm running a door-to-door campaign, and I'm trying to wear through a pair of shoes, so I look forward to seeing you this summer.
All right, we'll look forward to seeing you this summer. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you.
Good luck. It is my honor to have Steve Grossman, who is here, was a candidate before us 2 years ago, and now sitting state treasurer. Thank you so much for coming and seeing us, Steve.
Yeah, As always, I never miss this event.
This is a great event, and we're so happy to have you here at the Jefferson Jackson 2012. How are you enjoying the work at the treasurer's office?
I love the job. You know, when I ran, it was because we were in the middle of the worst economic times in 75 years, and I figured 36 years running a small business gave me some opportunities to really change the way we do business, and it's turned out just that way. And probably the thing that I'm most excited about is the small business banking partnership that we created. We brought hundreds of millions of dollars of our taxpayers' money back from Europe and Australia and Asia and put it into small, local, community and regional banks. 3 banks right here in Cape Cod got $20 million, and they're making a lot of loans to small businesses, creating jobs, and that's really what it's all about, getting people back to work and giving people, particularly in the small business sector of the economy, the confidence that we can move forward and we've got a bright future in front of us.
And that's very exciting to see that economic stimulus come to not only the state as a whole, but certainly to us here on the Cape. You've also talked about money that may be available for us in terms of maybe increased local aid. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. As most people know, as treasurer, I oversee the Mass State Lottery. The lottery is having a record year this year.
Excellent.
And what that means is more local aid. The House of Representatives voted recently to increase local aid significantly. So we're talking about a lottery creating all this unrestricted local aid, and the legislature sending that money back to every city and town for public safety, for senior centers, for firefighters, police officers, education, the roads, trash collection. It's all about quality of life. I think people in this environment are worried about their jobs, they're worried about the quality of life in their community, and if we can move more local aid back into every city and town because the lottery is doing so well, that's just something that I think gives people a sense that the future is a bright one for all of us.
And we could certainly use a dose of that positive energy here in this down economy. But it sounds like there's a lot of movement on the positive side, that the Commonwealth is enjoying some increased economic activity that's going to be beneficial for the state and the region.
It's happening. When I ran for this job, I had a lot of roundtable discussions, and I asked small business people, what can we do to remove the roadblocks and the barriers? And when you ask small business people that question, they're not shy. They basically say, access to capital, I need some technical assistance, too much permitting, too much regulation, cost of health insurance, help bring it down. So we've worked very carefully to try to work on all of those, and I think the small business people are feeling a little bit better. One of the great things about the job is I get to go all over the state giving away free money. What do I mean by that? I mean that I oversee unclaimed property for the Commonwealth, and if anybody watching this thinks they have any unclaimed property, or have never checked our website, it's findmassmoney.com. Findmassmoney.com. 600,000 people in the Commonwealth have unclaimed property, $2 billion in cash, and they don't even know it. They think the newspaper has the list. Those are only new names. So if anybody has never checked findmassmoney.com, go online, check it out. We returned $76 million to the people of the Commonwealth last year, and if 1 out of every 10 people watching this has unclaimed property, there are pretty good odds in doing that.
That sounds excellent. What else do you think that we have to look forward to in 2013 and beyond as we look towards economic growth here in the Commonwealth?
Well, I think one of the good pieces of good news is that our state's bond rating went up. It's the highest bond rate, the boss rating has ever been, AA+. When you have a very high bond rating, it lowers our cost of capital, and that puts more money right back in the economy. So, reducing regulation, making sure that small businesses get what they need, reducing the cost of health insurance. How many small business people have you talked to who said, I'm being crushed by the cost of health insurance? And that cost is now starting to come down, particularly for small businesses. So as a small business person all my life, that's what I'm working on. Treasury's right at the center of a lot of that, and I'm excited that we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. And it now being May, on our way to June, on our way to July, I'm looking forward to coming at all the nice homemade ice cream places on the Cape this summer. I've got a home over in Centerville, as you know, had a home for 30 years, so I can't wait for 4 C's to open up, and I'll be right at the head of the line for mocha chip and peppermint stick.
Well, you give me a call and I'll be right there with you. It's one of my favorite as well. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
I am very pleased to see my good friend Walter Moniz down from the South Coast. Thanks for coming. That's right. That's right. You're running for Governor's Council, right, Walter?
Yes.
This is your second run.
Second run.
So everybody knows your name again.
Hopefully. We've been working hard. It's a big district. It covers 48 cities and towns. We're happy to be in this race once again. I think we have an advantage. We've got name recognition. We've received public endorsements from the state delegation here in Cape Cod, from Representative Cleon Turner, Demetrius, as well as Sarah Peak, so I'm honored to have that support.
That's excellent to have that local Cape support, and I've also told you before that I've been so impressed to see you in so many venues here on the Cape, which I know your roots are in New Bedford and the South Coast, but you've spent an awful lot of time making friends here on the Cape. How do you feel about Cape issues and the role of a Governor's Council in terms of representing the district, specifically the Cape? How do you see that playing out for you?
What makes me different than my opponents in this election is that I have never worked in the court system. I'm a business person. I've worked for the office of the mayor. What I've been doing for the last 2 years is receiving input from our law enforcement, from the police departments here in Yarmouth and Hyannis and P-Town, and just getting input from a law enforcement, from district attorneys, and from our neighborhood groups, and hearing what type of judges moving forward we need to confirm that will benefit our community, that will benefit the economic development, the community development, and public safety in our community. And listening to a majority of the police departments here in the Cape, the major issue seems to be drunk drivers being let out, our gun laws, our drunk driving laws not being enforced. So what I want to do is make sure during the vetting process is making sure that we have judges that understand the needs of the Cape and the islands.
That's excellent. The fact that you are doing that research with the local police, with the local law enforcement, and the local courts, that certainly is something that we're interested in as Cape residents here. What other roles do the governor councilor play that you think that we should know about, that you would bring a strength to this as a candidate?
Well, the other thing, what makes me different is that being involved in the communities in the 48 cities and towns, I also want to encourage lawyers in the community to apply for judgeship. Even though the role of a governor's council is to confirm or deny judicial appointments from the governor's office, I want to be able to use my experience in the community and be able to encourage lawyers to be able to apply for judgeship and at the table make sure they get confirmed as well, because I want to be able to make sure that, like in the South Coast area, the issues there are gun laws not being enforced. Again, here the issues in the Cape and the islands is that drunk drivers are not being laws not being enforced with drunk drivers. So I want to be able to make sure that I get involved in the community and hear from our community which lawyers would benefit our neighborhoods, and that's what I want to do is push individuals, good candidates, to become judges.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure our governor would appreciate having someone like you serving on the council. I wish you the best of luck in the race. Do you want to close with any comments about your personal, your family ties, your personal life in the South Coast, your connections here?
I have a moving and storage business. It's located in New Bedford, but we service the entire Cape Cod and the islands. So I'm no stranger to Cape Cod. We have lots of friends here in the Cape. Again, I want to thank Cleon Turner, State Representative Cleon Turner, Demetrius, as well as Sarah Peak, for their vote of confidence, as well as the 85% of the elected officials that make up the 48 communities for their support and their endorsement in this upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, and wish you the best of luck. Thanks,
Walter.
So much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.